Hello there and welcome into another edition of the JMac Podcast. Can you believe it? 2020 still not done throwing us curveballs as we receive the news that Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg has passed away at the age of 87. And so it's important to ask the question, should the Senate take up President Trump's nomination to replace her? Before we dive into that question, and don't think that you just know the answer that I'm going to give you, wait and listen and hopefully process what I'm about to tell you, because it's going to be a little bit different than anything else that you hear out there. But before we dive into that, I do want to take a minute and reflect upon her passing, send our prayers and our thoughts and condolences to the family, and recognize that even though I don't agree with many of her decisions or her politics, I do appreciate how she carried herself on the court, that she lived a life and in such a way that she was able to be considered and nominated as a Supreme Court justice. And I'm not somebody who can't see the good that she did and give her respect for how she carried herself just because we disagree politically. And I hope that you're able to do the same thing. Now let's dive into this question. Should President Trump, well, first of all, should he make a nomination to replace her before the election? And then should the Senate take it up? Would you be surprised to hear me say absolutely 100%? The president should nominate her replacement, and the Senate should take it up as a vote. Absolutely 100%. In fact, the only reason that there's any discussion or question about whether or not this should happen is because of how the Republicans handled Merrick Garland back in the last year of President Obama's term. Now, if you remember back then, way back then, if we hop in the JMac time machine, I was highly against the Senate's decision and Mitch McConnell's decision to not at least bring Merrick Garland up for a vote. But he said, we're not going to do this in the last term of a lame duck president. It hasn't been done for something like 80 plus years. And so we're just not going to do that. Now, depending upon the clip that you hear from him, he says either a lame duck president in the last year of an 8-year presidency, but oftentimes he just says before an election or in the last term. But before I deal with that, let me back up and tell you why I think the president should make this nomination and the Senate should take it up for a vote. The reason for that is I don't believe in a lame duck presidency. I don't believe that the power of a president diminishes as their term goes along. I believe in the Constitution. And the Constitution gives certain rights and authority to the president, and it doesn't say in the last 30 days they have less power. It doesn't say in the last 24 hours they have less power. The president is the president of the United States, whether you like the man or not, until the moment that the new president is sworn into office. And the more you start to play games with what powers they can execute and what powers they cannot until their last day, the more you threaten and mess with the Constitution. So read the Constitution, recognize that it gives this power to the president to make the nomination, and that it's the job of the Senate to vote, to advise and consent on whether or not that nominee is qualified or not. If the Senate feels that that nominee is qualified, then vote that person in. That's the way that it's supposed to work. And I don't even care if the election has already happened and it's the last month of the president's tenure in office. You can't have a situation where you pick and choose what powers the president still has as their days in office dwindle. That threatens the presidency. That threatens the democracy and the republic. So I just have never supported that, which is why when the Republicans came out and they refused to even give Merrick Garland a vote, I thought it was horrific precedent. I said at the time it's going to come back and haunt them. Here we are, lo and behold, and it is haunting them. And it's just not good practice. The president is the president until his last or her last day in office. Now, if you don't believe me that many Republicans actually made this about any president in their last term of a 4-term presidency, I want you to hear the words of Lindsey Graham, who spells this out perfectly and who ironically predicts the very situation that we're in right now.
This is the last year of a lame duck president, and if Ted Cruz or Donald Trump get to be president, they've all asked us not to confirm or take up a selection by President Obama. So if a vacancy occurs in their last year of their first term, guess what? You will use their words against them. I want you to use my words against me. If there's a Republican president in 2016 and a vacancy occurs in the last year of the first term, you can say, Lindsey Graham said, let's let the next president, whoever it might be, make that nomination, and you could use my words against me, and you'd be absolutely right.
Wow. Now, when he said this, I remember specifically saying, be careful what you ask for. Because he's saying a couple of things. He's saying that candidate Trump told him that if a nomination becomes available in the last year of of their first 4 years, he's very clear to not take that nomination up. And Lindsey Graham is saying you'll be able to use those words against them and you'll be able to use those words against me. This is blatant 100% hypocrisy. That's all it is. And it's based upon political power. It's a simple thing to understand that the Constitution and the rules and the morality that you put on the execution of government only apply when you're getting your way. But when you're not getting your way, those rules are out the window. Now, I'm just for the sake of irony or whatever you want to call it, I want you to listen to his words one more time because he couldn't have spelled it out better.
This is the last year of a lame duck president, and if Ted Cruz or Donald Trump get to be president, they've all asked us not to confirm or take up a selection by President Obama. So if a vacancy occurs in their last year of their first term, guess what? You will use their words against them. I want you to use my words against me. If there's a Republican president in 2016 and a vacancy occurs in the last year of the first term, you can say, Lindsey Graham said, let's let the next president, whoever it might be, make that nomination, and you could use my words against me, and you'd be absolutely right.
Okay, now I haven't heard from Lindsey Graham. There are people out, the media is rushing to every senator. I know Lisa Murkowski has said she's not going to vote for a nominee because she thinks that the election should happen first. That's obviously her choice and her decision. But I'm waiting to hear from Lindsey Graham because he could not have been clearer. He could not have been clearer. So let's wait and see what he says. If he's true to his word, he's going to come out and he's going to say we should not vote. What do you think is going to happen? Is this partisan principles being expressed by Mitch McConnell and the Republicans? Is it principled or is it partisan? I think the record is pretty clear. But also, to be clear, a president is the president until their last day in office. And they have every right and authority to make these nominations. And I think the Senate, if they have time to do so, if they have time to properly vet the candidate and to have hearings, then they ought to put that candidate to a vote. That's what the Constitution says. And the more we follow that document, the better off we are. And the less we let our politics decide whether or not we're going to follow that document, then the better off that we are. That is my opinion on whether or not the Senate should have a vote for the replacement of Justice Ginsburg. Now, please take a minute and like this video. Share it with everybody that you can so that they can hear my opinion and chime in on the comments. And also, please take a minute and help support this podcast. Click on the link in the description and you'll see how you can go about doing that, because there are much more things that we're going to have to cover. And as we approach this election, we know for sure of one thing: 2020 is not done with us yet.